Hey friends, welcome back to my channel for part 2 of my travel vlog through the beautiful country of Iceland, where we celebrated our baby moon and my birthday. In this video, I will show you all the sights and places we ate throughout the gorgeous countryside and southern beaches and outside of Reykjavik. So we'll be getting out of the city and into nature in this video. If you're new here, hi, I'm Ellen. Go ahead and click subscribe if you're into travel, into mindset work. I am a life coach, into creative DIY projects. In the next video, I'm actually really excited to be sharing a full tutorial on how we built custom modern farmhouse industrial shelves, which I'll throw a picture of right here, from scratch. So stay tuned for some exciting times. Also, if you're a new and expecting mom, hey, I see you, I'm with you, welcome. So, to refresh you on where we are now in the trip to Iceland, we have just closed the door on our Rage Day, if you know, you know, in Reykjavik. And we are so excited to start exploring more of Iceland's kind of natural wonders and the most romantic spots in the country. Also, just stay tuned because I was not prepared for the birthday surprise that I got that was one of the most life-changing moments I've ever experienced. So stick around to the end if you want to shed a tear or two. So we woke up early and headed to our favorite spot for yet another new kind of cinnamon roll. P.S. The pastries in Reykjavik are out of this world. Highly recommend. Before, we were going to be leaving for a day trip around the Golden Circle. So the Golden Circle is a long looped road that takes you by many of Iceland's greatest natural wonders, including the meeting place of the North American and European tectonic plates, as well as several huge volcanoes, explosive geysers, skyscraping waterfalls, and ash-covered glaciers. We arrived at our first stop on the Golden Circle, the national park where you can stand between the two tectonic plates, and the actual divide between them is in these deep, cold springs with crystal clear blue water and caves that you can scuba or snorkel around. As avid snorkelers ourselves, one day I hope to get scuba certified. Matt and I booked well in advance so that we could swim between the plates and explore that beautiful water. Much like the conundrum I spoke about in part 1, we faced some issues with me being pregnant and dealing with hot springs and now the cold springs. We had to be mindful of any rapid changes to my body temperature. So we read up in advance on the insulated wetsuits and saw that many women continue to go snorkeling while pregnant, even in cold waters, as long as they're well insulated. So we were excited to get our feet wet, literally, and swim between the plates. However, in the first few minutes of orientation for our excursion, the guide asked the group if anyone had any health issues, which he proceeded to list a dozen or more conditions that people could have, including pregnancy. I thought I'd misheard him since I hadn't seen any sort of disclaimers on the website or in our booking. So I announced to the group, I'm pregnant. I received many mixed reactions. Most of the fellow participants congratulated me with excitement, but my tour guide looked very glum and said, I'm very sorry, you can't come. So we were disappointed and now had several hours free, and we decided to pose for a pic on the landing we thought we would be diving off of in a few minutes. And instead we set out on some of the hiking trails around the park. Now the walkways can take you for miles around, and it was a really beautiful day to explore this geologically and historically fascinating site. So we just set off. It turns out that not only was the location of the meeting of Earth's plates, but also this was where the first major government of Iceland was founded and met every year for many, many years. It's well worth the steps to see the view in the distance, the waterfalls, and the many interesting historical landmarks. After a couple of hours of walking, we set our GPS for the next site on the Golden Circle, while keeping our eyes peeled for a place to eat lunch. We found this super unique restaurant that was actually attached to a resort where you had to remove your shoes and put spa slippers on when you entered the building. With interesting antiques and sitting areas just outside the cafeteria, we enjoyed a leisurely soup and sandwich lunch before we hit the road again to our next stop, the geysers. Walking through this park, you can really see the extent of Iceland's volcanic activity come to life. Dozens of geysers bubbled and gurgled and exploded from the pressure and heat from the earth below. One geyser in particular proved to be the main attraction as we watched it erupt several times, shooting a stream of boiling hot water every 5 to 10 minutes as high as 130 feet in the air. It was awesome and entertaining as a natural display that got lots of happy screams from the children and whoas from all of the adults. We took a quick jaunt through the gift shop at the park and then made our way to our final stop for the day around the Golden Circle, the equivalent of Iceland's Niagara Falls. These massive and mesmerizing falls made for a marvelous ending to our tour of the Icelandic countryside around the Golden Circle. After watching for a while from the upper view, we decided that we'd had enough walking for the day and didn't venture over to the lower view or the closer landing by the falls. But we heard that the views there seemed to take people's breath away, so highly recommended if you have the energy. We made our way back to Reykjavik for a fancy, albeit light dinner, and we dressed for the part, matching the elevated decor of the restaurant. This was the location of our most memorable meal of the trip, their deconstructed cheesecake, which in Iceland is known as skyr. It was the best cheesecake we have ever had, and we live in New York. It was so good. So after momentarily considering to get an extra portion to go, we decided to head back to the hotel after a very active and full day. Our final day in Reykjavik was a relaxing one with not a lot of footage. We slept in late and headed to a new breakfast spot that had a line out the door every morning but seemed well worth the wait. With a pastry case to die for, an endless supply of fresh-baked sourdough bread, and a menu perfectly curated to those of us who love hearty breakfasts and strong coffee, we had everything we could need. That afternoon, we wandered through Reykjavik and bought a few souvenirs, making use of the tax-free shops for tourists, and took a long nap in our hotel room before making our way to the Last Supper of the city, a chef's tasting menu at the city's most popular restaurant. 6 grand courses, each more delectable than the next, was a perfect way to celebrate. Not to mention the delicious drink menu. I had a really fantastic mocktail and a live piano performer who did really great covers of popular songs. It had a great atmosphere for a long and enjoyable night. We headed back to our hotel for one more sleep before driving south for a romantic weekend at the beach. We woke up early the next morning to fill up on cinnamon rolls, yet again, and breakfast salads at this new same favorite spot. We packed up the car and said goodbye to our fantastic hotel, and we hit the road for another day trip of adventures on our way down south. We followed what's called the Ring Road, a larger version of the Golden Circle that goes all the way around the country, which we followed all the way to the southernmost point of Iceland. Most of our stops that day we enjoyed with a quick walk from the parking lot back to the car, starting off with this towering waterfall. We were not equipped with the appropriate waterproof gear, as many people enjoyed a misty walk underneath the falls, but we soaked in the serenity and set off down the coastline drive, stopping next for some lunch with a view. We sunbathed on the restaurant deck and savored some pasta and skyr yet again from this restaurant, enjoying the view of our next site on the tour, a colossal waterfall with a giant rainbow coming out of it. This one we could really get close to without getting too wet, plus we even caught a double rainbow before we left. Our final stop on the Ring Road to our beach town was a glacier that sat on top of a dormant volcano. While the main viewing area used to be very close to the parking lot, because of the melting glacier, there was a newer path that had formed alongside the ever-growing lagoon beside the glacier. What used to be a short stroll is now a 15-minute trail walk by the lagoon, leading you to the lookout point of the glacier. There are actually many hiking tours that you can take onto the glacier to explore the ice caves and all around the lagoon, and those groups skip that lookout and go straight to the base of the glacier. And many adventurous tourists, like me, decided to follow those groups straight to the base of the glacier, even though we were not dressed in the appropriate hiking gear for a glacier. Matt and I touched the bottom of the glacier. Matt even got a picture standing on it, although it's not recommended since we weren't wearing the appropriate footwear. And it was actually really hard to see the ice itself because the glacier is covered in ash from an eruption from a nearby volcano several years ago. It was worth it though to see it up close, and if you go during the right season, you can actually see colonies of puffins, which are Iceland's adorable versions of penguins flocking around the lagoon. We decided to save a couple of our last ring road stops for the next day, since we were just minutes outside of our beach town that we were staying in, the southernmost point of Iceland. This day was actually my birthday, so we wanted to check into our romantic hotel that had views of towering cliffs, black sand beaches, and the adorable village. We got my birthday dinner at the restaurant in the hotel, which was quick, easy, and delicious. The most spectacular part of that restaurant is the 3 towering walls from floor to ceiling of windows, showing off these incredible cliffs and sunset views just outside. We were told the night before we arrived was a spectacular display of the Northern Lights, so the hotel asked if we wanted to receive a wake-up call if they came again, which we, of course, eagerly said yes to. Because of the direction of our room's view and the hotel's main lobby view, we had the unique benefit of being able to see a large portion of the sky at night without having to go out and stand in the cold night air. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make use of that since there were no lights that came while we stayed, but it was nice knowing that we wouldn't miss them if they came. Finally, to wrap up this amazing birthday, my best and most surprising present of all came in the wee hours of the night. No, not the Northern Lights. I woke up to feel my baby girl kick for the first time. It was such a surprising feeling that at first I thought it was a weird stomach pain from something I ate, but when the sleep fog of my brain cleared, I realized that I was feeling my child in me, and I relished it. It was truly a turning point for me in my pregnancy, and what a gift to experience it on our baby moon and my birthday in beautiful Iceland. The last full day in our beach town, we started off with a short walk from our hotel to a nearby school bus cafe. You heard that right. There was an entire cafe inside of a school bus. We thoroughly enjoyed our coffee and pastry sitting in the little galley of bar stools inside the bus, taking great pleasure in reading all the puns and quotable signs that the owner had as decoration. We then walked outside the cafe to find an honor code-based 9-hole golf course. Now, my husband is an avid golfer, so he jumped at the chance to play a short round. The trick of the system, however, is that you get 2 balls, and there are a lot of tricky shots on the course. So we had to search high and low for the balls several times, since losing them meant he had to stop playing. I entertained myself between some of his shots by climbing up some of the hills and into the overhanging caves and waterfalls. There is a very active appreciation in Iceland for fairies and elves, or what they call the hidden people, who live on these cliffsides and hills and under waterfalls, and who bring good or bad luck to the people they encounter. Many Icelanders have even built little homes or bring gifts to the hidden people. And since I was empty-handed, I did the next best thing I could. I talked and I sang to them as I searched for any traces of homes or dwellings of these little people. If any of you have seen Eurovision, you know what I'm talking about. After finishing the round and grabbing a quick lunch, we hopped back in the car for the sites that we skipped over the day before on our way to Vik, a cliffside lighthouse and a view of a natural arch, as well as the famous black sand beaches. The wind on top of the cliff was so strong that Matt and I stayed well away from the edges. But the views from the lighthouse all around the coast and of the massive arch were breathtaking. On one side of the cliff, you could faintly see the volcanoes and the glaciers off in the distance. Many, many miles towards the horizon on the water, straight ahead. And then the adorable town of Vik and the black sand beaches below, with the surrounding farmlands nestled in the countryside. It was a spectacular view. With a short drive, or a decent hike if you're brave, down the cliff, you could then walk down to the world-famous black sand beaches, which aren't really sand, I might add, but rather smooth, black, round pebbles. The texture was really satisfying and a great workout to walk on. And the basalt rocks along the shore were some of the most unusual natural structures I've ever seen. You could climb them like stairs, and they formed these massive caves that felt like you'd entered another planet. The current from the water was something there were many signs warning against, as the instability of the pebbles underfoot and the riptides claimed lives of unsuspecting tourists every year. So we played a little chase in and off the shoreline, skipped some rocks, and soaked in the natural, unique landscape before heading back to town. The rest of that day, we explored our way around the little quiet village of Vik, got an unremarkable dinner, and I won't even mention the place since I don't really have anything positive to say about its food or atmosphere. And we cozied up for our final night in Iceland. The next morning, we spent simply packing up, enjoying the sites that we'd previously visited, but from a distance as we worked our way back up the ring road until we got back to Keflavik, where the airport is located. We returned our rental car, checked in, and got settled on our flight back home, well rested and fully adventured out from our epic trip to Iceland. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing some more international adventures after we have our little one join us in the new year. If you enjoyed this, or if you plan to go to Iceland, let us know in the comments. And for now, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.
Ready? Ready. Yeah.